y'all, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and today's video is very basic, but down right into the point, and it's the 3 main tips that you really need to manage type 1 diabetes. As simple as these tips are, it is hard to put them into perspective if you don't really understand the root of these main 3 things. The first thing is you need to understand the role of insulin. You need to understand, first of all, that insulin is the hormone that your pancreas produces in response to glucose fluctuations. When blood glucose levels rise from either stress or other environmental triggers or from food that we consume, insulin is then produced in response to regulate this blood sugar and keep it at a healthy level. As a type 1 diabetic, we do not produce this insulin, or not enough of it, because our beta cells have been destroyed, or if you had a pancreatectomy, if you had a removal of your actual pancreas, you are treated as a type 1 diabetic, but you're not technically under the terms as a type 1 diabetic because you don't have the autoimmune version of type 1 diabetes, where your own body mistakenly destroyed itself. So anyways, that is that. But you need to understand the role of insulin. You need to understand how much insulin affects you, whatever insulin you take. If you take regular insulin, know that it's going to act slower than rapid-acting insulins like Humalog and Novolog and Apidra, okay? The first thing I always say is, look at your sensitivity. How much does a unit drop a high blood sugar? How much units covers a certain meal or a certain amount of carbohydrates for you? And let me tell you, there's going to be some circumstances where you're going to look at a plate of food, especially at a restaurant, and guess, and you're going to be like, that's 5 units. And you're going to get so good at it, you can nail it down. That's 5 units. That's 15 units, whatever your ratios are, okay? That's 250. No, don't give yourself 250 units of insulin. That would be dangerous, extremely dangerous, but you need to understand the role of insulin. And I highly recommend the Juice Box podcast if you really want to understand the role of insulin. Bumping and nudging blood sugars is all a normal pancreas does, and you can do this with the insulin you take, but you need to do it in a pretty consistent manner and understand how much insulin affects you. For example, a 0.6 will drop your blood sugar, but it'll kind of level off a slightly elevated high before it turns into a dangerous one, okay? Versus taking a unit or 2 units or 3 units when your blood sugar is 200-300 and watching it plummet. I believe highs lead to lows and lows lead to highs, because if you're not appropriately taking the amount of insulin your body needs and not understanding the role of insulin in your body, you're not going to get anywhere with managing type 1 diabetes. Also understand that insulin is also needed for background insulin, or when you're not eating, when you're asleep, when you're not doing anything unusual, you need some sort of basal insulin. And that just is to control your liver spillage of glucose, because your liver will spill glucose in response to not having food in your body, okay? Your brain, your organs, everything needs glucose, and your liver will spill that, and you need basal insulin to cover for that. And you may need more basal insulin depending on your needs, depending on if you're affected by other things, which will lead into my second thing. You need to understand the role of food and nutrition at its wholehearted best. You need to understand that carbohydrates impact your blood glucose values the most, okay? Carbohydrates are simply eventually get broken down into sugars. Some carbohydrates are complex, where it takes them a little bit more time to break down into sugar, whereas some are more starchy or pure sugars like rice and potatoes and fruits. Those will spike your blood sugar really fast. So be aware that different foods are categorized on the glycemic index as far as how they spike your blood sugars and how they affect your blood sugars. Also keep in mind that fats delay the onset of a blood sugar rise when paired with carbohydrates. Also, keep in mind that if you do not eat a lot of carbohydrate but have a lot of protein-based things, that also will in turn raise your blood sugar levels at a more gradual rate. So you need to understand the role of food. You need to understand what things on your plate or what things that you eat will affect your blood sugar the most and what things will affect your blood sugar the least. The obvious starches and sugars are a good place to start and recognize that, hey, I need to watch this portion, or hey, I really need to make sure I cover for this appropriately so I don't have dangerous high blood sugars. And my third tip is you need to understand the different environmental triggers that also impact your blood sugar. For those of you that do not have type 1 diabetes, it is more than just food and insulin that impact a type 1 diabetic's blood sugar. It's activity levels, it's hormones, it's stress, it's medications we may take. It may also be contributed by other diseases or other autoimmune diseases. Some of you watching my channel right now may have other autoimmune diseases beyond type 1 diabetes. You may have Hashimoto's disease, Graves' disease, celiac disease. You name it, you could have it. Lupus is another great example. So you need to understand the role different environmental triggers and different outside sources affect your blood sugar. Weather can also play a huge impact. How hydrated you are can play a huge impact. How much sleep you're getting. There's endless amount of things that can impact your blood sugar, and you need to recognize which ones affect you the most and learn to deal with them in the best way possible. For a lot of people, anxiety and stress will raise blood sugars, including myself. I'm learning that going back to school to try to control that, to not have dangerous high blood sugars. And for a lot of people like myself, any type of activity, particularly cardiovascular activity, will drop blood sugars. So you need to keep in mind and be prepared to handle those environmental triggers, because the insulin we take is not inapt. There's no communication with it. So it'll keep working no matter how much is left. It'll keep working till it's fizzled out, basically. So if you're going to go out and exercise and you know you have insulin in your body, you need to eat something to cover for it or reduce the amount you take to not have a low blood sugar. And in addition to, if you think you're in a stressful situation or you think you're going to enter a stressful situation, like before an exam in school, maybe turn up your basal rate. Maybe give yourself an injection of a couple units or a couple units on your pump to kind of cover that stress, to kind of help give your body the insulin it needs, because in response to stress, your liver and your will stimulate with your adrenal glands and actually cause like that fight or flight situation with adrenaline, and that pushes more sugar into your bloodstream really quick. So keep in mind to deal with those things and be really ready to fight those different environmental triggers the best way possible. Now, I know these 3 tips to you guys sounded very basic and very, very old school and nothing to it. I'm preaching to the choir for those of you that have had type 1 diabetes for many years, or like myself have had it for long enough to understand that these are your 3 things. But you need to understand them in a pretty deep manner for your lifestyle in order to get anywhere with diabetes. You need to understand the role of insulin. You need to understand the role of food and nutrition. And you need to understand what environmental triggers impact you the most. And the easiest way I can say to do that is to look at a Dexcom continuous glucose monitor. Okay, I had white rice. 125. Okay, most of the time white rice would go whoop whoop for me. I put a couple other precautions into place. I pre-bolus at least 15 minutes with the rice. I take a mindful portion of the rice. If I feel like I need to, I might do a temp basal, especially if I'm before my period, or I'm not feeling good, or I'm stressed, or think I'm getting sick. I might do something different to try to not let that blood sugar spike as high. So you need to keep in mind those things, and understand that you can have normal blood sugars, but you got to put work into it. And you got to be willing to manipulate with your insulin, and understand that you can move and groove with your insulin as long as you understand how the insulin works for you, what foods you put in your body, how they react to you, and that can be very specific to any person. For me, I have a hard time with yogurt. I put some precautions into place with yogurt to not spike as high, or I try to eat lower carb alternative yogurts, like the Too Good yogurts. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. I try to eat like the Oikos 000 yogurts. They're like 8 carbs, a whole entire container, versus normal yogurts being anywhere from 15, 16, 20 carbs. So for me, that's how I manipulate with that. Whereas with me, ice cream does not seem to bother my blood sugar, even the most full sugared ice cream. I can eat ice cream endlessly, and it doesn't seem to impact me as much as eating a little bit of yogurt. Whereas with you may be the opposite. You may be, ice cream's a no-go for me, but I can eat as much yogurt as I want. That's fine. Everybody's body is going to respond completely differently to completely different foods. So you need to look at yourself, look at your life, and figure out what your insulin needs are for your lifestyle, the diet you eat, and how to interpret that for your lifestyle. And then the final thing is learning what other outside factors that may come into play with your life and how to react to those in a safe and sensible manner. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. Stay tuned to see who the winner will be on Sunday. I think I'm going to do Sunday's video as the actual giveaway winner video. I'll probably just like film it and throw it up. With me going back to school next week, it's going to be kind of hectic to do 3 videos in a week, and I'm going to explain that at the end of August. I'm pretty much for sure going to be going down to 2 videos a week just to keep my sanity with school, and the content will still not lack and all that stuff, but I want to keep you guys aware about that and know that I'm still going to be here. But if, you know, I'm not as active on my social media or something like that, that you understand that, hey, she's probably studying for something. So anyways, until tomorrow for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.